guys, Andy here. So OnePlus, they've had quite an interesting route, interesting journey, I suppose. They started with the OnePlus One, kind of obviously. I think it was only £250. I probably should have tried to look at it. I did buy it. I really liked it. I think I named it my kind of phone of the year, just because it was amazing value. Really nice hardware, beautiful software, disappointing camera. They progressed through the different versions, and to be honest, I kind of dropped out. I lost a little bit of touch with OnePlus. The 2 wasn't as good as the 1 for me. I'm sure I've tried other ones. I definitely tried the 6T. My brother's using that now at the moment, actually, and I really like the 6T, bar the fingerprint sensor just would not work for me. Would not work. And that just, it was a deal breaker. What could I really do? It's possible it's a faulty phone, I suppose, but my brother doesn't use fingerprint sensor, so it's fine, doesn't matter. But it was a deal breaker. I have always been a bit of a OnePlus fan, though. You like sort of that company that's coming in giving you really good hardware but at a better price. But interestingly, with the OnePlus 7 Pro, they're pushing it out there now. So you can get it for $649. There's one at $699, the one that we're reviewing today, and there's $799 for an even bigger spec one. We'll come to that in a moment. But they're no longer that budget, sort of little plucky budget upstart. They're kind of mixing it in the lower end of flagship, really, or very upper end of mid-range. I think you're pushing towards flagship though at 700. So it's interesting that they've kind of gone that route. They started off trying to be the budget phone, and they're almost becoming what they were trying to kill. But anyway, here we are with the OnePlus 7 Pro, and it really is a beautiful device. Probably inside under the lights doesn't do it justice as just how nice this blue is. I've got a bit of footage outside in the sun with it glinting and shimmering and changing colour, and it really is a beautiful device. I swapped everything over from my Huawei Mate 20 Pro to the OnePlus 7 Pro using OnePlus's own software, where you kind of connect the two, not physically, but I forget how you do it actually. If it was a touch of the back using NFC, and then it just kind of transferred all the apps and things, and I'm most of the time app data, but to be fair, that could actually just be through Google's cloud rather than through the syncing software. And it generally went okay. The OnePlus 7 Pro comes in 3 different colours: mirror grey, nebula blue, and there's also an almond one. This obviously is the nebula blue. The first thing you perhaps notice about this device, though, is the lack of any bezels, top and bottom. Now obviously, to get rid of the bezel at the top, that means they've had to go with the pop-up camera, which is a bit of a thing that kind of makes this device recognizable. OnePlus say they've tested it to 300,000 uses, which means you could do it 150 times a day for 5 years and it should be fine. I probably only use it a couple of times a week maybe. I do like they've got drop what's it called, drop detection. Now I'm going to try and just throw it in the air and catch it again real quickly, and you'll see the lens, the front facing camera automatically comes in and it tells you free fall detected, and you can just say, yeah, bring the camera back out again. But anyway, we're going to talk more about the camera obviously in a little while. Let's carry on about the design. Possibly the second thing you might notice, well actually it could be the first thing you notice, to be fair, because someone hands you this device, you're going to feel how heavy it is. And it's 206 grams, which is a lot for a device. I think that's probably one of the heaviest devices I've ever used. I think I'd have to double check. The Note 9 would have been in that region, but it just does feel like quite a weighty device. 8.8 millimeters thin, or thick you could say in these days, because that's probably considered quite large. Other design things to note: the volume rocker is actually on the left, because we've got the power button and we've got the volume slider. It does come with a case, which actually is quite a nice case for sort of a free case that you get, but I think it detracts from the device's beauty, quite honestly. So I sometimes pop it on when I'm just around the house, so I don't have to worry about throwing it down on a table or whatever. And it comes with a screen protector pre-applied, but I noticed how much dust seemed to be sticking to the foam with the screen protector, because I think it's just a slightly rubbery texture to it, just real slightly, so you get a bit of resistance when you're using it, and this dust just seems to gather so easily on it. So after a few days I thought, I'm just taking it off. I just need to be very careful with the screen not to get it scratched. Be warned, if you do that and then you put a tempered glass screen protector on, it can interfere with the fingerprint sensor, which obviously I've not already mentioned, but it is a front mounted in-screen fingerprint sensor, and actually it's really quick. So I was a bit worried because, as I said, the 6T I couldn't really use because of the fingerprint sensor just being terrible. This one really quick, really reliable. I sometimes have a bit more issue on my left hand. It was a little bit slower, and my thumb, but I probably just need to, there we go. I probably just need to redo my thumb, to be fair. If we talk about the hardware, it's got a Snapdragon 855 chipset, which is a 7nm. It's got an octa-core processor, 1 times 2.84 GHz cryo, 3 times 2.42 GHz, and 4 times 1.8 GHz. They're all cryo 485s. It's got an Adreno 640 GPU. It's got 8 GB of RAM and 256 GB of storage. Now I mentioned the different price points earlier. You could go 6 GB with 128 GB of storage for $649, or you could go all the way up to the top, 12 GB of RAM and 256 GB of storage for $799. Now I just didn't think 12 GB RAM is necessary. I think 8 is fine. I kind of wanted to do it, but at the same time, really don't need it. The other interesting thing, this has the UFS 3.0 file system. So it's basically new, faster chips in it or something like that. It just means it can read and write information internally a lot quicker. It's the first phone I think that had that. The Galaxy Fold was going to have had it on release, but obviously the release got delayed. So I think it's the first device with the new faster file system. All that means that it will Geekbench forward around about 11,000, and Tutu is about 360,000. So really high benchmarking score. There is no SD card slot, there is no 3.5mm jack, there is no waterproofing. Well, tell a lie, there's no waterproof rating. OnePlus say they've done everything they need to, they just don't want to pay the license to have it officially classed as waterproof. So they sort of say, don't worry, it's fine, which I'm kind of okay with. It does have NFC and it does have stereo speakers, which actually are very loud. They came second, so I do a speaker test where I have my decibel meter over and I play certain bits of music, and it averaged 95.6 decibels, which is the second highest anything that's ever scored.
Assange's lawyers say that he's being charged with a crime for encouraging sources to provide truthful information.
And I think it's the podcast and therefore phone calls which kind of sound the best, if that makes sense. So you're never going to have great sounding music from a phone, something that small. But the spoken voice from the speakers is really, really well rounded, really good volume, obviously to have the second loudest speakers I've ever tested. And actually the speakers are a real strength of the device. For someone like me, who probably against the norm holds quite a lot of stock in how good the speakers are, that's actually a big thing. So yeah, the stereo speakers really very good. Talk about the screen for a moment. So it's a Fluid AMOLED 6.67 inch 3120 by 1440, so that's 19.5 by 9 ratio, and it's about 516 pixels per inch. And I think generally it looks really good. Really good colours, good brightness. It scored 711 lumens in my test, which is up there with sort of decent phones. Obviously we've mentioned there's no notch. What I didn't mention is the 90 megahertz refresh rate. Now I don't know I have a good enough eye for detail to tell you how different that looks, but basically it's a bit like a frames per second if you're playing a computer game. Most screens are kind of 60 or lower. This can drop down to 60, but it is set at 90, so you've just got that faster update, so everything should in theory be much smoother and less blur. It's all protected with Corning Gorilla Glass. There is no always on display screen, which for me is a real disappointment. I just like to have a clock there, and I like to be able to see if I've got notifications. You have to give it a tap to see everything, or a lift, and that's okay, that's good. I suppose it's good for the battery life, but I would still prefer to just have it there that I can glance down and look and not have to not to touch. I know it's not what, really, I can't just touch the screen, but that's my preference. But it is a fantastic looking display. It really is. Really very. We're going to move on to talk about the cameras. Cameras, a bit of a sticking point, bit of a deal breaker for many apparently. People saying how disappointed they are with the OnePlus 7 Pro camera. I don't think it's fair. I don't think that's a fair thing. But let's take a look anyway. So the main lens is 48 megapixel f1.6 with optical image stabilization. It uses whatever technology they do to actually, the photos you're generally going to get a 12 megapixel, but it uses the extra pixels to get the clarity and better low light or something like that. Then we've got an ultra wide lens, 16 megapixel f2.2. Now this actually is a big deal for me. I really like the ultra wide lens on the Mate 20 Pro, and it was kind of one thing that stopped me going with the Pixel 3 XL, that it didn't have the ultra wide on the back, had on the front but not on the back. It just comes in so handy at times when you can't get far enough back to fit everything in. You flip it open to the ultra wide and all of a sudden everything fits great. Then we have a 8 megapixel f2.4 telephoto lens, which basically, well, they claim it's 3 times zoom with optical image stabilization, but I'm sure I saw an article about how it's actually 2.2 times zoom and then they've cropped it a bit or something like that. Okay. We've mentioned the motorized pop-up 16 megapixel f2.0 front-facing camera. So if we talk about the photos themselves, generally I think they're really good, but actually most of the photos I've been taking have been in very good conditions. And from the main lens you get good, crisp, clear pictures with good detail, good strong colors, and I think they do look very good. The ultra wide angle seems to somehow overexpose itself at times, or they just come out a little bit washed out. The image, it just isn't as good. The colors just aren't as strong, which is a bit of a shame. But again, not horrific. Nightscape doesn't really compare to the Pixel Huawei, but it's okay. You get some reasonable low light photos. Low light generally isn't too bad. The selfie cam, again, is solid enough. It's good enough images, I think. Portrait mode is reasonable. And generally photos from the front-facing camera, I think they look okay. I do love the flexibility of the 3 lenses, as I kind of mentioned. Just being able to adapt from wide to zoom and all the way through, really quite handy. The videos, 4K video at 60 frames per second with electronic image stabilization is pretty good. Sharp, good colors. I've generally only filmed using the main lens, if I'm honest. Panning is a little jittery, but then that could probably be fixed with a software update. I know there's a lot of phones suffer from that kind of issue. The low light video, it does have a bit of noise, but again, it's not too bad. And slow motion, I think I tried it a couple of times. Yeah, it generally looks okay. If we move on now to software, so let's try and get to, there we are, about phone. So you can see there the build number. So I'm on Oxygen OS 9.5.5. We're basically running Android version 9. And I'm actually in a sort of a dark mode at the moment, which is why it's all black. But Oxygen OS, actually I really like it. A lot of people do. A lot of people sort of talk about how great it is, and I can see why. It's very stock, but with a few nice tweaks, and it's generally slick and smooth. So, for example, Icon Manager lets you hide whatever icons you want in the top bar there. Not that you can see it very well against this backdrop, but if I wanted, I could turn off the Wi-Fi indicator, I could turn off the cell signals, I could turn the clock off. Like I've turned NFC off already and things like that. You can say what icons you want and what you don't. I love that kind of customizability. I do like the settings of drawing things on the screen. So, wait for that to go off. If I do a V, it turns the light on. Do you see that? Turns it back off. There we go. If I do an O, it's going to open it up to the camera. If I'm listening to podcasts, I can draw sort of an arrow one way or the other to skip forward and back. And I do like that kind of thing. So I'm laying in bed, listening to podcasts, an advert comes on, I want to go, and it starts skipping 30 seconds at a time. So I do really like those. There's a Zen mode, which basically means something on the lines of for 20 minutes, your phone just won't bother you. Maybe it still gets phone calls or something like that. So you can allow urgent messages through. I'm not sure. I'm not really into that kind of thing. There is a built-in screen recorder as well. I think I've got that on my... There it is, screen recorder. And it's just generally very sort of slick, smooth, stock looking. Mind you, to be fair, I've got Nova Launcher on here at the moment. Only because sort of stock launchers, they struggle with widgets. They only have a set grid size, and therefore they make some widgets like massive and you can't fit anything else on the screen. So I went to Nova Launcher. But I mean, I don't think the stock launcher is actually too bad, to be fair. So there's this weird thing about Ghost Touches. You run CPU Z, and every now and then the notification bar will just drop down. And then, so you swipe that away, and then like an advert opens or something like that, something it goes to somewhere. So touches are being registered on the screen that you're not doing. Doesn't really bother me. I've only seen it in CPU Z, so I'm kind of like, well, just don't use CPU Z. Or even then, it's only the notification bar coming down. But I get that it could be an issue for one reason or another. So, but I think from what I've read, it is a software issue, and they will hopefully be getting that sorted fairly soon. We're going to move on to the battery, which is a 4,000 milliamp hour LiPo battery. It doesn't have wireless charging, which is kind of the second big knock, along with the always on display. The second thing that actually I would really miss, or will really miss. It does have warp charging, so 30 watts, and that is very quick. In 30 minutes, it would charge me 53%, and I went from 21% to full in an hour and a quarter, basically, which is pretty damn quick. I mean, my Huawei Mate 20 Pro has quick charging like that, but it's just nice to know it's there, I suppose. Generally, I finished the day with 40 to 50% battery left, which again, plenty. I could probably go through to the morning if I needed to. I don't need to charge overnight. On my actual test, it scored 92%, which is kind of in there with a lot of other devices, the best being up there at like 94 or so. 92 to 90 seems the sort of common area, so it's at the upper end of the sort of common finishing position. It was interesting, this morning I watched a video by Mr. Who's the Boss, where he pitted the OnePlus 7 Pro against the OnePlus 7, the Pixel 3a XL, the Mi 9, and the new, is it Asus Zenfone 6 or something like that. And the 7 Pro, it came second last, which isn't great, but at the same time, it's got a way bigger screen than almost all of them. It's got a 90 hertz refresh rate. It's I mean, you can turn the refresh rate down if that really bothers you. And he was saying it still was a reasonable result. It just got beat by better phones, with some of them with bigger batteries, some of them with slower processors, and that kind of thing. It's just how it is. Personally, the battery is okay. It's not a strength, but it's not a weakness. It's all right. So, my conclusion. I don't think the camera should be a deal breaker unless you're really into taking photos with your phone. If that's really, really important, yeah, there's probably other phones you should be buying. The wireless charging and the always on display, they could be deal breakers. I think they just sort of, it's just annoying it doesn't have them. It would have been really nice, even if you put in £5 or £10 on the device, I would rather have had wireless charging. Why it doesn't have always on display, why it's not an option, I really don't know. I get that they might say, well, it burns a lot more battery. Okay, but give me the option. Like I said, I finished the day with 40 to 50%. If I can have always on display and I finish it around 30%, I'd definitely take that. So that's a bit of annoying. It's good to see that the fingerprint sensor was fast and responsive. That could have been a deal breaker. If it had been like the 6T, it wouldn't even have been an option of me keeping the device. What will concern some is the sort of size and weight of the device. For me, obviously quite a big guy. It's fine, but even then, there are times when I'm reaching to get to something, and I register because of the curve of the screen. I do register a touch at the side, be it one way or the other. When I'm trying to get to things, you can't help but almost touch it. So I'm not a big fan of the curved screen. I mean, it feels good in the hand, and to an extent, it looks really nice, but I don't think it's practical. Practicality versus aesthetics keeps winning, but I'd probably have preferred flatter screen. I think the bottom line, from the beautiful nebula blue back, the amazing bezel-less screen, the device looks amazing. It looks fantastic. Throw in then that the hardware is generally top of the range, really good hardware, at a reasonable price. It's slick and it's fast with its software. They get updates reasonably quick. I think OnePlus are onto a winner. I think Marcus Brownlee already said it's the phone of the year for 2019 so far, and it's hard to disagree. It's a really good device. So will I be keeping it over the Huawei Mate 20 Pro? I think I will. I don't have any urge to go back to the Huawei now I've done this review. So for me, I guess that says something. So those are my thoughts. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. But for now, my name's Andy. I'll catch you all again soon. Well done, and thank you for making it to the end of the video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, you might want to click the little fellow that should hopefully appear about here to subscribe. You may also want to check out some of my other videos, which are going to appear somewhere there. Also, come and have a look at my website, androidandy.uk. There is also a forum. Come and say hello on the forum if you've got any questions about things, or request me to review things, or anything else. Just come and have a chat on the forum.